The local villages are infested with werewolves. Can you root them out of your village? In silver. Welcome to Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. Silver is a push-your-luck card game for 2 to 4 players. It takes about an hour to play. It has some hidden information and a little bit of a memory element. It has some similarities to card games like Golf or Cabo, but in this one, every card has a special power.
It's published by Bezier Games, and they sent us this prototype copy to preview.
Let's look at the prototype components. A deck of cards with 14 different types of villagers, reference cards, a score pad, and a silver amulet. In the published version, it will be metal.
To set up the game, deal a row of 5 face-down cards to each player. Then place the deck face down in the middle of the table, and flip 1 card face up to start the discard pile. Before the game starts, each player can look at 2 of their face-down cards and commit them to memory.
The goal of the game is to have the fewest werewolves in your town when the round ends. The number of werewolves equals the value of your cards. So you're trying to get rid of the higher value ones and keep the lower ones. You play 4 rounds and whoever the lowest score at the end wins.
So on your turn, you can either draw the top card off the draw deck or from the discard pile. The other option you have is to call for a vote, which is going to trigger the end of the round.
When you draw from the deck, you get to look at the card and then decide whether to put it in your village or discard it. If you keep it, exchange the card with one in your village. The new card stays face down, and the exchanged one goes face up in the discard. If you don't want the card you drew, you can discard it. If the card has this icon, you can activate the power when you draw it and then immediately discard it.
If you draw a card from the discard, you still exchange it with one, but you place it face up in your village. You can't use any powers with this icon from the discard, but powers with this icon can be activated when they're face up in your village.
If you have matching cards in your village, like 2 witches, you can get rid of both of them when you exchange for a new villager card. But you have to declare it and then reveal the cards to prove that you're right. If you made a mistake, you keep all the cards.
Being able to get rid of multiple cards at once is one of the keys to doing well in this game, because then instead of having 5 villagers, you might have 4 or 3, and the chances that you have fewer werewolves than the other players goes up.
And if you have 4 or fewer cards in your village, it unlocks the vote option. So if I think I have the least value of cards in my village and I have at least 4 or less cards, then I can call for a vote. Then everyone else gets one more turn, and then you end the round and everyone reveals their cards and you total up the score.
You add the value of the cards in your village to see how many werewolves are there. Each player, except the one who called for the vote, receives that value as points. You don't want points.
If the player who called for the vote actually has the lowest score, then they get 0 points. But if someone else has a lower score, then that player who called for the vote actually not only counts up their points, but actually it has to add 10 to it as well.
So it's pretty risky calling for the vote, but those 0 points are very tempting. It's also the only way to earn the amulet, and this amulet is powerful. You can use it in the next round to protect one of your cards from the other players.
And if no one calls for a vote, then the round is over when the deck runs out and everyone tallies their score. And after 4 rounds, whoever has the lowest score wins the game.
So this is definitely more of a tactical game than a strategic one. Your choices are determined by the cards that you draw each turn, or possibly by the cards that other players accidentally discard. It has those high emotional moments when you take a gamble and you replace a card that you don't know what it is, it's still hidden to you, and you flip it over to put it into the discard pile, and then you see that it's something awesome like a 1 or even a 0, and inside you're just going, no!
But the next player's doing their happy dance. Every card has a power, and some of them let you interact with other players. The Apprenticeer lets you view someone's card. Both the Witch and the Robber let you replace cards in people's villages. If you have a face-up guard, you can protect one of your cards from other players.
I like the variety of powers in the game, that some of them activate when they're face up in your village, and then others are you get to decide when you draw them if you want to discard them for the power. The icons do a good job of distinguishing between those two different types, and there is a reminder on your player reference card too.
The game is easy to teach. Usually you're drawing a card and deciding whether to keep it in your village or to discard it.
Yeah, we played this with my mom, and she likes games like Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, Quirkle, and she was able to pick up the game, understand it, and she actually did really well.
Now this is a prototype, and we heard there might even be an insert from Game Trace. I enjoy all the illustrations. They have a similar feel to their other werewolf games in Bezier's line.
So in addition to the press your luck aspect of the game, there's also that memory aspect. You need to remember which cards you've seen and where they are in your village. There have been a few times where I've meant to discard a high card and I've accidentally chosen one of the low ones. Like, oh no, it was the other spot. So you have to keep that in mind.
Or you don't want to make the mistake of turning in matching cards by mistake and they don't match. That can be bad too, from personal experience. So if you enjoy Press Your Luck games, stretching your memory, or you have fond memories of the card game Golf, then check out Silver from Bezier Games coming soon, and we'd love for you to subscribe to Tantrum House. Keep the lower ones. So there's, and the 4 rounds.
4.
There you go. Those higher value ones and keep the lower ones. And they play...
There's also a reference on your player reference. A reminder. A reference on the reference. Imagine that.
You got the reference or references.
Mm-hmm.